Oh, guys, I'm going to have fun today. We've got power tools. Oh, yes, I have put my Semogue Owners Club bore brush at the end of my drill. Oh, so let's get to that a little bit later. So Chiseled Face Midnight Stag is the soap, splash, and cologne to be used all this month for this Austere August thing I'm doing. Challenge, if you will. Most recently, we put 586 uses on the Nacet blade that I'll be using today. And so 587 is the count for today's shave. Timeless open comb, stainless steel, 68 gap razor is the weapon of choice. And here's the Nacet blade. And I was speaking recently in the comments and also over on Reddit with my friend Greg, who is very sciencey like me. And so I think that's one of the reasons we get along so well and just have a natural scientific curiosity and a natural inclination to be analytical about things, and that's part of our enjoyment about them. There's plenty of other guys out there who just want to shave, they don't want to think about it. I just do whatever works, and that's great. There's lots of room in the hobby for people who don't want to think at all, who just kind of wanted to give it a shot, do it, and not really, if they need more water, I'll just get more water. If I feel like I need more soap, I'll get more. And that's terrific if they want to do that. But me, with my brain and the analytical side of me and stuff, I love looking in general, looking at how things work, why they work, especially if I want to tweak something, will this work? And that's why I have been using this Nacet blade for so long, because I am wondering, when will this thing give up? My friend Greg is correct in that the apex of the edge, when viewed microscopically, is so rounded off by wear that it may take so long for it to get more dull, because it's really easy for a very fine point to dull. But once it dulls enough to be more of a rounded point, do you know how hard it is to dull a rounded point? Well, as it gets more rounded off, it gets harder and harder to dull. And he's the one who brought that to my attention, maybe last year, maybe, I can't remember, maybe it was earlier this year, but that makes total sense, and I just wouldn't have thought about that. So, yes, we were talking about, how did this idea come out? Well, I've always kind of wondered about it, right? And there's probably somebody who's done it, but his question to me in a recent conversation was, have you noticed any difference between adding water to a lather slowly versus adding a lot of water up front? Because last time I used my jigger and I added about 35 milliliters of water to my bowl lather with this new base of the Chiseled Face soap. And that is a lot. Most of the time it's about 20 milliliters. And so that's a lot. And it wasn't a supreme top tier lather. It didn't have that ultra creamy, lightly creamy, ultra slick. It didn't have that perfect combination, but it was very respectable, very workable. No need to make any kind of excuses for it. And especially when you consider the price point, it's more like a sterling price point, I believe. And that's tremendous. We need more people like that, especially people like Chiseled Face, who are presenting a reasonable soap base with really creative scents. I like a lot of their scents, like Sherlock and Ghost Town Barber, Loyal, those kind of things. As well as the Midnight Stag, of course. So, as I was responding to him and saying that no, in general, I've done a lot of thinking about this over the years, because it was one of the first questions that popped into my mind when I was being critical about my bowl lathers. And so I have been looking at it with a critical eye, specifically with that question in mind. And so far, I've not seen very many soaps at all that care whether you add a lot of water at first or whether you do it slowly. Now, another experiment I plan to do this month, you guys can remind me if I don't do it, is to wonder and see if I can figure out if adding it all in the beginning is faster, if it gets me to that right lather sooner, is what I mean, versus adding it slower. And so I'm curious about that. In a sense, it's easier to add, if you know how much water to add, if you've done it enough, you're consistent enough, then you know about how much to add. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect every time, but if it requires a tweak toward the end, then it's easier to tweak a little bit than to tweak a lot, right? So if you know how much to add, you add it in the beginning, then basically it's all about mixing until it's right. And so maybe it's faster. Because if you add slowly and you're mixing, there may be points in which you have incorporated all the soap and the water together into that emulsion as good as it's going to get. And so if you keep mixing farther than that, then potentially you're slowing down the end result and keeping it farther from you. And so the minute you get a good mix, then it's time to, let's add a little bit of water, get a good mix, a little bit of water. Now my guess is that's going to be the slower mix. I don't think that will give you a better lather. It definitely keeps your lather from bubbling up on you as quickly. But even if it bubbles up on you because you've done the other way where you add a lot of water first, all the time, I just keep mixing and the bubbles settle down and it turns into a great lather. So it's good. I can't wait to see. There's a couple things I want to try. Number one, does this create a good lather at all? I think it probably will. Number two, does it, since it gives me a lot more mixing, does it give me a lather that is somehow a better emulsion than what I can get with my hands? Like, for instance, back when I was experimenting with Williams Mug soap, every once in a while I would land on this amazing lather that could compete with anything. I mean, soaps costing $30 a tub. That Williams Pucka soap, at the time it was $1.25, I think. It could compete. The creaminess, the luxury, the slickness, they were all elite level. Was it because I had created that emulsion? I hope I'm using that term right. I had created it in the right way. Maybe I had mixed it enough. I know back then I was mixing a lot. Long time of mixing. And is time the secret? And or number of swirls, if you will. Effort. Is effort the secret? If effort is the secret, then this could be a great solution to an amazing lather. Because this generates a lot more effort than my arm can generate in a lot less time. Because obviously if I were to tell you guys, hey, you can upgrade your lather just by spending 10 minutes swirling in the bowl, or 15. You can escalate your lather from good to great. You just have to spend an extra 10 minutes mixing your lather. Most of you guys are going to say, who cares? I'm not going to spend an extra 10 minutes mixing my lather. And so we'll see what we discover today. And those are a couple things I'm hoping to find the answers to. And we'll see if some other issues come into play. Obviously, the action that the drill can do, where it's just a swivel, is not the same as the action if I was doing it by hand. That's more of a swirling motion. And so I'm going to have to put it in and then just kind of move it around like that. And so it's not exactly the same motion that a shaver would do. But hopefully it'll be close enough to be fun and maybe to answer some questions. Since I can't let it sit in my soaking cup, I'm having to kind of keep it wet. Oh, this is gonna, now, yeah, I'm not, it's gonna be hard to apply it to my face, right? But we'll just see what happens. Okay, so this is out of my ordinary routine. And so my rhythm here is, okay, my razor's loaded. My rhythm here is altered, definitely. There's no reason to calculate how much water I'm adding because this is a non-standard shave. Let me get my face wet. This could be, in the future, if I like this method, I could take an old secondhand brush, maybe I have a duplicate of or something like that, and turn it down so that maybe I put a spindle on it or something easy to put in and out of the drill. This could also increase the speed at which the tips split. It could also damage them. So I'm not going to do it all the time with this good brush, but let's just see what we learn. I'm not going to put the brush in the soap tub and pull the trigger. Even going slowly, I have learned that it just takes 16, 20 swirls to get plenty of lather. So I think that would be overkill. Okay, let's get the water going, get this thing nice and saturated. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's, I didn't even really shake out very much water, so that's almost as much water as the knot will hold. I'm letting the excess froth drain out into my bowl. All right, so right now, this looks like a lather, the starting stages that I've seen many times before. Light amount of soap on the brush, but we know that's deceiving. That can definitely give me lots of lather. And then a wet bowl. So here we go, guys. I'm going to start slow, obviously. Okay, after that much time, let's take a look at it. Lots of bubbles, of course, that is not a surprise. I'm going to alter my grip on my drill here. I apologize if the sound is too much. There we go. Haha, it's bubbly for a while there, and you can see I was doing a pumping action to try to get the center of the knot here pushing down into what I was working with instead of just having everything be on the side. And we are progressing. Now I think it's adding so much more water than my usual pattern does. I'm sorry, I said water, I meant air. It's definitely more airy. So I'm curious how that will pan out here as we go. Oh, and then I'm going to reverse the direction here just to, you can see how the bristles are being affected. So look, we've got that shelf of lather. Let's add some water. Obviously, we started out with a ton of water in the brush. But let's just add some more. See if maybe this mixture settles down a little bit or what. That looks better. Oh, my shoulder, my deltoid muscles are getting a workout. Look, it is changing. That water, I think, helped it out. It's no longer that shelf of lather going around. I'm going to hold it a little lower. If I back up, maybe you can see it. That's a workout. So you can kind of see it jiggle, I hope. So it's definitely keeping its structure. Let's add some more water. Let's just add a bunch, see what happens. This is just so funny. Well, as you can see, we have a lot of lather. Now, what kind of lather is it? It's very light. It's wet. This does not feel like a great lather. It feels like too much water has been pushed into it, and it doesn't really it's not leaving behind a good kind of residue for slipperiness. This may be a case of the machine adding in too much air. Would the drill work better at certain speeds than other speeds? I think that's a valid question. If it's too fast, then maybe it does whip up too much air into it. Look, it is moving due to gravity, very slowly. Let's just stop there, shave with it, see what happens. Get my face wet again. Actually, I'm not going to get it wet too much since I think my lather might not need that. Now, am I gonna drill my face? Let's start it off slow and see what happens. Kind of feels nice. I've got plenty to add to the brush. The spinning motion does focus a lot of the bristles in the center, and so you do feel kind of a almost like a cone of tips pointing into you, but there's enough of them, and let's switch directions now. There's enough of them that are not in that area that do feel good. It's a very interesting feeling. Probably feels how you might guess it should feel. Now let's do some painting motions just to kind of smooth things out. It is very interesting. I just kind of started grinning the minute I came up with this thought just about an hour ago. Nice quick pass. Then back in to get some more lather. It is a serviceable lather. It's not luxurious. Before I added that last bit of water, you might think that, hey, if you thinned it out with too much water, then maybe you shouldn't have added that last bit. Before I added that last bit, it wasn't getting more viscous. The more I mixed, I think the more air got into it, and so it wasn't changing to be thicker, to be creamier. And it's a really funny paradox how you can have a lather that feels like, boy, I wish this was creamier, and it's kind of light, and you add water to it and that causes it to thicken up. You almost assume that if you add water to it, it thins it down. But I think it's because of that emulsion. When you've got soap that's waiting on some water to join to, this is my best guess as to what's going on. You've got some soap molecules that are waiting for some water to join in on. Then when they do, and they become that emulsion, that joining of those two molecules, then they thicken up. And so water will thicken in that sense. And then now obviously once all the soap has joined up with some water and thickened, then the more you water after that point, you thin it down, you know, and so it's, in one sense, it's counterproductive, but once you pass a certain point, then no, it's logical. You add water and yes, it does thin down your lather. As you can see, I often drip onto my shirt. You don't have to rinse your blade as much as I do. Rinse your head off there, your razor. But I also don't like to be absolutely saturated if I can help it. And so that's why I do rinse a little bit every once in a while. All right. So yeah, I think in the end, that luxurious creaminess that I was wondering if I would find is not going to be achievable through this kind of mechanism, because at least for this particular base, it seems to be introducing too much air to get to be creamy. That's my guess. It does give a very neat face feel. I used masking tape because then the adhesive is not so strong like duct tape or other kinds of tape where it's going to stick on my brush handle or my drill chuck. And there we go. This was so funny. You know, why not? One more time for old time's sake. So what did I do? Like 16 swirls? And I ended up with so much lather here. I'm just going to use this as kind of a face wash. And I've got another 5 passes of lather in here. So the final verdict, it seems to be adding too much air into the mix. Too much so that it's not going to be able to create a more dense lather that is ultra creamy, but also still has lots of water to keep it be ultra slick, to keep it being ultra slick. So that was one of my big questions. But number one, another thing, it is fun. It was fun. And I don't think it really saved me any time, because by adding more air to it, it took me a while to work it all together anyway. But in terms of ways to lather that work your deltoids, it gets top marks. Let me get a good face rinse here. Well, I tell you, it was easier cleaning the brush. I put the bowl down in the water. I tilted it over so that only a certain amount of water would stay in the bowl. And then I had the brush down going like that. And then every once in a while I would pour out the slurry and then start fresh. And it was very effortless. Just had to wait, spin that drill. Now, look at it right now. And I'm going to put it high speed. This has got a second gear. I'll do it high speed to see how it can fling, if it's good at flinging water out of the brush. Wow. Look at that. You saw it a second ago. Holy cow. That puts me in mind, is there an adapter or a drill chuck I could just keep with a drill in the bathroom here? At the end of any shave, I pop my brush into it, and then I use that to sling it out really well. It widens the bloom like that, and then pop it out and store it or whatever. Let me go do this on the towel. Not surprisingly, that didn't take very long, and this is what it was doing to my face. You can kind of see maybe the core is a little stronger than what's out here, and so that's that cone I was talking about that was giving a little bit of pressure to my face. But wow, yeah. That's just so funny. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a day. And here we are, proof that the brush handle was not harmed in any way. All right, let's give this a hairdryer treatment. Because the slinging out via the drill in the sink there spread out the bristles so much, the ones that were clumping together because of the moisture, it released those. And so it's a less dramatic effect after you blow dry it than previously, but it should still be pretty noticeable. This is after the blow drying. Maybe the biggest bloom I've ever had on this guy. Oh my goodness, what a day. That is funny. Let me put my drill in a safe place. And now let us apply the splash for Midnight Stag. So funny, for years, you know, I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up calling this kind of product an aftershave lotion. And indeed, when you go to Walmart and you look at some of the traditional type splashes, you know, some of them will still say aftershave lotion. And that was just a name that we gave to it apparently many, many years ago. And it's not a lotion at all. It's it's an alcohol product rather than a viscous type lotion product. And so that's why we call them splashes now, because it's more accurate. Or you can also just call it an aftershave. But then, of course, that's not specific. But if casually, you can just call it an aftershave or post-shave. And then we'll do the Midnight Stag Good and Low cologne here. This is an EDP, Eau de Parfum, which has a certain percentage of the scent extract put into it. EDP, EDT, they have different percentages. EDC. All right. Oh yeah, let's loosen up the razor, rinse it out, give it a shake, and let it rest. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. That was a very different shave than usual, right? How about that? That's crazy. No, I would not advise doing that on a regular basis with a brush you care about. I think that it's probably a good guess that the outside bristles are going to be stressed too much, probably to the point of starting to break over time. So if you had a cheap boar brush, and there's plenty of them out there, then yeah, I'd say go for it, have fun, see what happens. If you like it, to use it consistently. I don't think I did any permanent damage by just trying it once with this good brush here. But how about that? How about that? In a sense, it was more effort in terms of holding, but that's because I was showing you guys. If I had it down below, then it would have been effortless to kind of wait and let that lather come together. You know, I wouldn't have been working out quite so much. And so it had potential to be a pretty effortless way to put the shave together. How about that? I'm just mystified. That was really neat and fun. I'm glad that idea popped into my head. You guys, take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.